Tony, I'm going to pull this over to there, okay?
Sure.
Hello everyone, my name is Nicoya, and this is the review of the BMW C Evolution. This is an electric scooter from BMW, and I'm borrowing this from Calimoto, same place I got the Energica Ava that I reviewed on a previous video. So we're going to take this for a spin around the block, see how it performs, and see what BMW is bringing to the table. This bike's been available in Europe for a little while, and is just now coming to the US. I believe they're launching this in California right now as of like January, February of 2018, and it should roll across the country, I don't know, whenever they figure they can sell some units, I guess. So Harley Race here bringing it around for me, and we will pick up from his intro of all the features.
It's nice and quiet. That's hit me in the face when I'm going down the road.
Yeah, it's just like, what happened to Tony? Cut his cornea, then the sign flew off and it scratched his cornea. That would suck,
yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and settle it. That would totally suck. All right, now, on this thing, when you start it, it's normally like this.
Yep.
When you try to start it, you go like this, and then it tells you to pull the brake and press the start button.
Lights up.
And now you've got the arrow to go, and it's ready to go. Reverse. This is your rear brake. Hold on here, Tony.
Yeah,
okay, so the only thing that's goofy about the darn thing is because there's one, it doesn't make any noise.
Yeah.
And two, the throttle is really super fine, Tony.
Okay.
Okay, so when you can actually creep with this thing, it's ridiculous how slow it'll go. Okay. Next, over here on here, these are just information there.
Right.
It's not like the other bikes you need to fiddle with it all the time.
Yep.
And then in the mode, I have it in Eco Pro right now, and that is what's supposed to be the ideal regenerative braking and throttle response.
Okay.
Now, if you want to change it to road, that's the next step up, and it's a little bit faster, and it may be a little bit. Sail is no regenerative braking.
Right.
And then dynamic is very sporty, and I don't know what the regenerative braking is on it because I've only ridden it in Eco and Road. Okay, so we'll start you on Eco Pro,
Sure.
see what you think.
Sure.
Do several loops, you know where that is.
Yep.
And then when you bring it back, park it over by your bike.
Sure thing.
Okay?
All right.
Have fun, man.
Will do.
So let's start by talking about the ride modes. So as Arlie said, there is the Eco Pro mode, which is basically limits you to about like half, or I want to say 3/4 throttle, something like that, and has full regeneration on it. And the regeneration feels very much like if you're riding along on a regular motorcycle and maybe sort of in the upper rev range, you just fully let off the throttle and you have your engine braking. The peculiarity comes in when you get down to sort of, you know, your crawling idle speed. Like let's say you're in first gear, you crawl along around 10 miles an hour. On your regular motorcycle, you'll just start idling and you'll just keep going. The engine braking will stop acting then. But in this one, obviously, there is no such thing as idling, and the regeneration keeps going right until you're down to stopped. So you can ride around on this thing, literally never using the brakes, and just rely on the regeneration to slow you down to a standstill. The road mode is sort of the standard mode. It gets you full throttle and half regeneration, and so it's more like letting off the gas in the middle of the rev range on a regular bike if you're in like a taller gear or something like that. So it's not quite as severe, you know, when you let off the throttle, it doesn't like slam you forward into the bars. Not that it does regularly, but you know, it eases up on that, so it feels a little more smooth when you're riding. The sail mode is a peculiar one. It basically, you get obviously full power on full throttle, doesn't cut the power at all, and when you roll off the throttle, it's as if you just pulled the clutch in on the motorcycle. It just completely disconnects. You just coast along, as if you'd like pulled in the clutch or shifted into neutral. And I'm not sure from a practical sense what use I would have for it, but it exists. So if you really like that sensation, you can use that mode for whatever reason. Finally, there's dynamic mode, which again gives you full power on the throttle. I don't think it remaps the throttle at all, like the same. I didn't feel like there was any difference in the amount I twisted the throttle versus the amount of power I got, other than the eco mode, which obviously limits the power on you. The one thing it does do compared to road mode and sail mode is that it turns the regeneration back up to 100%. And so if you're feeling more spirited, then you can use the regeneration to assist your braking as you dive into corners or do whatever. And honestly, the bike handles really nicely. You could have some spirited riding on this, at which point the dynamic mode would come in handy for that. So as I move along here in slow traffic, I want to talk a little bit about the weight of the bike. So the bike is 600 and change pounds, like 606 or something like that. You can look it up online. It handles that weight beautifully. It's nice and low. The bike has a fairly long wheelbase, but it has a fairly, it's similar to, like I ride a C600 as one of my bikes, and it feels very much like that. It's slightly heavier, it's slightly peppier just because you have the torque of the electric motor, and the gearing is nicely placed. And so it feels, quite similar to that. I really enjoy it. In fact, I probably, like if I had an outlet at home and I didn't already have the C600, I would probably be very interested in getting this bike. So if you're in that market for, a commuter or an all-around town bike, definitely make sure you check this one out. And definitely make sure you don't pull into a lane in front of other people like that van up there did. So I'm going to pull around the corner here, and at about 20 miles an hour, sort of your standard sort of dicking around speed, I'm going to hit the gas right there. And I have hit 60 miles an hour right there. So it goes. It really goes. And it doesn't really tail off too much as you get faster. Now, it is electronically limited to, I believe, 80 miles an hour. So once you get to 80 miles an hour, you're not going any faster. But I did a few sort of high-speed pulls along here, going from like 50 to 60, 50 to 70 or something like that. And you rip the throttle and it goes, and you don't have anything to complain about, really. Other than the fact that it is kind of distracting and you may end up missing your turn, like that one there, which I should have turned down. But that leads me to the next thing, which is that it goes around corners, which is cool because people on motorcycles like to go around corners. So I got a chance here to pull around this cloverleaf here. Obviously I wasn't dragging pegs or anything, but that's more about the fact that it's, my first 30 seconds on a loaner bike that I really don't want to destroy and have to pay for. So, needless to say, I'm not going to be too adventurous with it, but by all means, you can be if you want to. This is a very fun bike to ride. It doesn't handle weirdly in any of the sort of scooter ways. Like, if you've ridden a Vespa, forget any of that. This handles nothing like that. If you've ridden a, sport touring bike, I would say that's probably your closest analog here. So, it does have a little bit of a long wheelbase, but it's got a good steering lock, so it's not like on a super sport bike or something where you're going to be coming around a corner like this and end up running into the curb. I've got plenty of room here. I probably even could have cut it a few feet closer, but, I have like 4 lanes to turn into, so it wasn't a big deal. Again, the power is great, the handling is great, it really makes sense. The entire package here really makes sense as an urban bike. BMW has made no pretense about what this bike is for. It's for going around the city, doing, moderate, freeway connections, and, navigating an urban environment. And so they've put a motor in here that's very torquey. It is geared for lower speeds. They mentioned that the torque starts to fall off, I think, 4650 RPM, but I don't actually know what that translates into in terms of forward speed, because I don't think they mentioned what the final drive ratio or anything like that is. So chances are that it's going to fall off probably around 70, maybe 60 miles an hour. It's going to start to get a bit more sluggish, but anywhere up to that, and let's face it, that's where 90% of your riding is going to be. You are going to have a bike that feels very spirited. Not going to, rip your arms off and, wheelie 12 o'clock all the way down to the next town over, but that's not really what this is for. It's a long, fairly heavy bike. You're not going to get the front wheel off the ground, and that's really a good thing. So again, the regeneration, very smooth. The throttle's very smooth. I mean, when you get on to a electric motorcycle, for some reason, like, my impression is always going to be that I'm just going to touch the throttle and the bike's just going to squirt out from under me and it's going to be unmanageable. But, I'm piddling along in traffic here, regular city traffic, standard urban environment, suburban environment, whatever you want to call it. And it's fine. It's very easy to manage. The, first half of the throttle is, super... people use all kinds of words here that don't make sense, but it's very gentle. And then, you just twist it the rest of the way and it takes off and you're, leaving streaks of taillight behind you. Sort of get my picture in my head of like the old 80s thing where you like pull away in the car and you just see like the long exposure of the taillights going. Anyways, on the other side of the coin, there is the brakes here. And I'm going to do a few brake checks up here. Of course, make sure there's no one behind you when you try this, because it does stop in a hurry. It only has, like, I want to say 270 mil discs in the front, like a pair of them, another 270 in the rear. Rear brake actually works, unlike a lot of bikes, and in fact, in one of these brake checks, I actually get it to, I think that one there, the rear ABS kicked in a little bit. Very strong brakes, very stable braking, doesn't feel squirrely at all. It just stops in a hurry, and for an urban bike riding around town, believe me, you want that, because there's going to be people pulling out of driveways like this guy here. Maybe he pulled out in front of me. I need to throw out the anchors and stop. I have that option to do that because the brakes are great. I don't have to worry about it kicking up into an endo and like flipping over the bars or anything like that. So I don't know what's going on up here, but there is a lot of police out here. You might have seen on last round there was like a motorcycle cop and there was a another police vehicle there. Now there's like 2 more police vehicles and very strange things are happening. I don't know. Anyway, that aside, I want to say, so when I reviewed the Energica Eva or whatever the hell they call it, I was quite harsh on that bike. And I was harsh on that bike because, number one, it was targeted at the super naked target segment. Number two, it was kind of hideously expensive. It was like 25 grand. This thing is retail around 13 grand sticker price, and then add on options and accessories and delivery and everything else. But that's a very reasonable price for this kind of vehicle, I feel. You can compare it to, like, a Ninja 650 or like an SV 650 or something like that, and that's going to come in a lot cheaper. But in terms of like the gas equivalent of this model, like the newest ones, like the C650 Sport or the C650 GT, God, try saying that 5 times fast. That one comes in at about 10 grand, and so you're paying extra 3 grand for the privilege of never having to stop at a gas station literally ever again. I think it's like 100 miles range or something, probably in eco mode. So you could probably count on like 70 if you're really giving it the beans. So you never have to visit a gas station. You never have to do an oil change. Like, I don't even know what the service is on this. There's probably like stuff that needs to be greased every once in a while, but like it's just going to run forever and not do anything. So that's really cool. You do get a peppier feeling bike. Now, granted, I'm comparing this to my C600, which is a few years old now, and there have been some model updates to that line since then. So they may have closed the gap in there a little bit, but you get a very peppy bike. You get 50-pound heavier bike. This one again was 603 pounds versus the latest C650 is about 550 pounds. You can't really feel the difference. You do get different styling. Obviously, it's got this green thing going on with the side panels and whatnot, and it has a peculiarly low windshield, which I would honestly replace if you're planning on doing any riding on the highway whatsoever, because it is very low. Like it almost feels like you're riding a naked with maybe like a mini fairing on it. And the dashboard, which is a very nice color TFT, very readable, is also positioned very low, so you do have that sort of wide open feel in front of you. And maybe you like that, maybe I'm just being weird, but especially if it starts raining, I really appreciate, like I even put a touring windscreen on my C600 that comes up to, just below my sight line. And I really appreciate that for keeping the rain off. And given that I use it as sort of my winter rainy day bike, that is, it's really nice to be able to, ride on a motorcycle, not worry about things, and arrive to where you're going basically bone dry. It is really neat. But I mean, obviously, without the larger windscreen in there, which aftermarket options are available since it's been available overseas for a while. Without that windscreen there, you're only dry from like the waist down, which kind of defeats the purpose. So all in all, this bike gets a much bigger thumbs up for me in terms of the whole package than the Energica Ava did. It feels just as peppy. It comes in at literally half the price. It is a very functional, versatile, flexible bike. It has a trunk in the back. You can stick a helmet in. And the one last thing is that it has a reverse gear, which once you have it, you will never want to give it up. And if you've never used reverse on a bike, you might think it's difficult, but right here, I'm basically just kicking off with my toes and balancing, doing like 3 miles an hour backwards, and it just does its thing. You reverse into a spot. You don't have to care if it's uphill or downhill. It's like, oh, I accidentally nosed into a spot that's downhill, and now I have to like shove this 600-pound bike back. That doesn't happen. You just put it in reverse, and you leave a little twist on the throttle, and that's it. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remind you to subscribe if you want more, and I will see you in the next one.